morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, I want to tell you about a really good new tool card coming out. Now, it probably won't surprise you too much to know that our translation comes from the lovely Antoine Boulet, one of our very favourites over on this channel. And apparently, it's called Toughness Mantle. But it's clearly the cape of a certain champion of Galar. So that sounds like fun. What does it do? Well, according to the lovely Antoine Boulet, it's a Pokemon tool. And if the Pokemon this card is attached to is a basic Pokemon, excluding GX Pokemon, it gains 50 HP. Oh, that's good. That's really good. I mean, it is extremely reminiscent of Buff Padding. At the moment, we've got Buff Padding. Buff Padding is a Pokemon tool that gives an extra 50 HP to a Pokemon that has a retreat cost of exactly 4. So there are certain decks, I mean, Steelix really springs to mind, because not only does Steelix have a retreat cost of 4, but Steelix also does damage based on the amount of Pokemon you discard from your hand with a retreat cost of exactly 4. So, yeah, that's going to kind of love this. But a lot of other decks just aren't making use of Buff Padding so well. Good card, not seeing enough play. One that is similar and seeing a lot more play at the moment is Big Charm. Big Charm gives any Pokemon an extra 30 HP. So clearly, right, if you're playing a mixture of basics and evolutions, GX and non-GX, etc., such that Toughness Mantle isn't going to help all of your Pokemon, it's probably better to have Big Charm giving 30 more HP to any of your Pokemon, rather than Toughness Mantle giving an extra 50 HP to some of your Pokemon. But here's the thing. Some decks are going to basically just have Pokemon that can use this. And that's basically going to be their entire deal. An entire deck of basic Pokemon that aren't GX, and at that stage, it gets good. I mean, this works with Zacian. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I suppose, you know, leave it up to you, lovely ladies and gentlemen, to figure that one out. But it puts Zacian up from 220 to 270, rather than the 250 it would be getting from something like Big Charm. And that's pretty gosh darned relevant, if I'm honest with you. Pikachu and Zekrom at the moment with 2 Electro Power using the GX attack will get a one-hit KO. Well, now all of a sudden, they need 3 Electro Power to go and get a one-hit KO. And they might not have 3 Electro Power. And even if they do, it's 3 of their Electro Power, and then for the rest of the game, they just don't have very many of them. This is it's a match-up card. It's a kind of card where you're often deciding how good it is based on maths. For any Americans watching, yes, sorry, we had an S on the end of that. You say math, we say maths. Either way, we mean the same thing. By we, I mean people in the UK. So my point here is that this is going to ruin the maths for some people in some matchups. And that's kind of your goal. The goal for any card like this should be, I am going to survive a specific hit that I would not have survived anyway. Here's the thing, let's take Eternatus VMAX. Now, Eternatus VMAX looks like the card from Darkness Ablaze that has the best chance of mixing up the format. Now, what it does, the ability is a Sky Field. As long as you're playing all Darkness Pokemon, you can have 8 bench Pokemon. And then the attack does 30 damage for each Darkness Pokemon that you've got in play. So, full bench of Darkness Pokemon, you're hitting 270 damage. Big Charm will not save Zacian, and neither will this, because you'll still be at 270. So you need to be thinking with this card very carefully about what you're surviving and what you're not surviving. Now, take something like Zacian having used Arceus and Dialga and Palkia. You're going to be doing 260 damage after using the GX attack. So Pikachu and Zekrom has 240, it will be KO'd. Oh no, wait, you've got resistance. But it's still 260, you'll still be KO'd. Big Charm puts you out of range, this puts you further out of range. So there's an argument there, And yes, I know it's a GX, so can't use it. This is hypothetical. There's an argument there that, there's no point playing this over Big Charm, but maybe there are other matchups you're not thinking of so much. And while we're here, this is a really good time to talk about the fact that it doesn't work for GXs. Now, there was a card we looked at a couple of weeks ago that I said I was convinced was made a little while ago and they forgot to change it. Turbo Patch allows you to attach a basic energy from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon, excluding Pokemon GX, i.e. it does let you accelerate energy to Pokemon Vs and VMAXs, but not to GXs and Tag Team GXs. And I was convinced that was a mistake. I'll link the video in the description, but it certainly seemed like it was wrong. It seemed like it had gone wrong. Well, this does it as well. But this seems like a very, very deliberate choice. What they're basically saying is, we don't mind you using it for Pokemon Vs, VMAXs are out because they're not basics. But we do not want you using it for tag teams. And that makes sense. Things like Pikachu and Zekrom, things like Mewtwo and Mew, things like ADP, they are really good. And I know I'm not the only one that holds this belief. They are good, even in a way that Pokemon VMAXs aren't. They seem like better cards. Things like Pikachu and Zekrom and ADP are ridiculous, and we don't really have any VMAXs that are quite this level of ridiculous. Yes, they've got lower HP than the VMAXs, but they're still redonk. Again, this card does not work for VMAXs because they're not basics. So what the card designers are basically doing are going, look, go play Pokemon V. Here's a really good card. It works for Pokemon V. Go play Pokemon V. Don't play GXs and tag teams. Go play Pokemon V. And this is a really good card. It all depends on what you're playing, obviously. Like I say, Evolution deck's not going to work. GX deck's not going to work. Mixed decks that are too heavily one of the things I've just named, not going to work. But let's say you're playing something like Blacephalon. That seems like a pretty good example, doesn't it? Blacephalon is one of the best decks around at the moment, will survive the rotation, 120 HP. This puts it up to 170. And now, all of a sudden, a lot of those things that would KO don't. Pikachu and Zekrom's Full Blitz no longer gets a KO on it. Something like an Excadrill. I'm a big fan of Excadrill, and Excadrill is becoming a very trendy counter to decks like Pikachu and Zekrom, but Drill Bazooka for 120 all of a sudden doesn't get a KO. And actually, even if you're using Martial Arts Dojo to hit 160, you're still not getting a KO here. Bearing in mind Big Charm, you would be able to get a KO using Martial Arts Dojo, but this you don't. Another example of, oh, hang on a second, this saves me in this particular matchup. Of course, the other example, while we're talking single prize Pokemon, Spiritomb. In the last few weeks, Spiritomb has become extremely trendy. Now, partly it's because Ross Cawthorn, I'd like to call him the other Ross, but actually he's the dude that got second at Worlds, and he's been around before me, so I suppose that makes me the other Ross? Hey-ho. He went and started smashing the Limitless qualifiers online with Spiritomb ADP. But then, of course, Dragapult was legal for tournament play, and Dragapult is weak to darkness, and Spiritomb can, under the right circumstances, be a rather phenomenal counter to Dragapult VMAX. Either way, Spiritomb is an incredibly trendy Pokemon. It's got an ability that lets you put a damage counter on it once during your turn, and an attack that does 10 damage base plus 30 more for each damage counter on Spiritomb. So the more HP you've got, the more damage you can have on you. Oh, there we go. Now all of a sudden, you can have 110 HP, which means you can have 100 damage on you, which means you're doing 310 damage, which is ridiculous. And when you've got, now to be fair, Rainbow Energy is rotating out, but bearing in mind, Spiritomb can put damage on itself, and then we've got Jinx that can move damage from other Spiritomb over to the Spiritomb you're attacking with, and this can actually add up very, very quickly. And people are using Big Charm on Spiritomb at the moment. That is absolutely something that people are doing. Well, this is only going to be better for Spiritomb. The other thing is, let's say you're playing something like a Dragapult VMAX. You don't want Spiritomb. So your attack lets you drop 6 damage counters. If you want to take out a Spiritomb, you drop a Galarian Zigzagoon, you drop 10 damage on there, then you use your Max Phantom, and then you get a KO. With a Big Charm, it's difficult, but you can do it, especially if they put 1 or 2 damage on there themselves. But with this, what does Dragapult do against 110 HP Spiritomb other than use boss's orders to bring it in the active and get a KO? Which they're legitimately going to have to do. And that's kind of terrifying here. This is going to make things like Blacephalon and Spiritomb way, way better, but it's also going to make every Pokemon V better. Big Charm sees a lot of play, and this is not for every deck. But in every deck that can use it, this is so much better than Big Charm. Make no mistake about it, there is a huge difference between an extra 30 HP and an extra 50 HP. This is a good one. I'm giving it 5 Wassies, and I feel very, very good about this. There are some decks, like I've mentioned, that will just slot this in instantaneously. There's a bunch of others that won't. But there's a lot of decks that are at least going to be considering it, and a bunch of them are going to play it, and I think it's awesome. But I'd like to know what you think. So let me know in the comments section, would you? Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that good stuff, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where you can find out about a whole bunch of games that don't have Pokemon in, but are pretty gosh darned awesome nonetheless. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.